Welcome back. Well, we have Dr. John Hovannessian here on behalf of Harvard Eye Associates, and he has a warning for all of us. Well, welcome. Thank you for joining us today. I mean, unfortunately, there is something going on right now in the news, and it's all over the place, so tell us about it.
Yeah, there's been a number of news articles about an artificial teardrop that has been linked to a number of eye infections that can potentially be very serious and threaten the health of the people affected.
Wow. Now, there's a lot of eye drops that are out there, and this is particularly for, artificial tears. So how does that differ from a regular eye drop?
Yeah, so artificial tears are very commonly used. They're simply liquid that you can place in your eye to lubricate the surface. The more common name you'll see on all of the packages is lubricant eye drops.
Okay.
And there are many different formulations, many different companies. It's really overwhelming when you go to the pharmacy to see how many there are. And one broad category that drugs fall into is with preservatives and preservative-free.
Okay.
Preservative-free means that the bottle doesn't contain any contents that are designed to fight off bacteria, or other contaminants. Usually preservative-free drops are designed and delivered with like a twist-off package that you use and you put in once or twice and then you throw it away.
Right.
And you know, it's possible to keep them a little bit longer. You have to be very careful so they don't get contaminated, because nothing's protecting contamination from growing in the bottle. Now they do make multi-dose preservative-free drops, a number of drops. So you can't just look at the bottle and tell it's preservative-free.
Right.
You have to read the label to see.
Oh, you mean the really tiny print on there, so make sure you have your glasses.
Yes, that's right, which, by the way, we can help with that. But this particular strain of infections that's been going around has been linked largely, but not exclusively, to one brand of drops. So it's happened with more than one brand, but it's been particularly associated with an artificial tear that's not a real common one, but it is sold here in California, and this has occurred in 12 states, including California, and it's Ezra Care artificial tears, and specifically the preservative-free versions of them.
Okay, now what kind of damage is it doing to the eyes?
So it's causing infections. It's not the drop that's causing infection, it's bacteria that seems to be contaminating the drops. Now, what the CDC, who's all over this, has not yet figured out is whether there are bottles, unopened bottles of this that contain this bacteria, whether it somehow became contaminated during the manufacturing process or whether it's getting contaminated after it's in the hands of the end user, the consumer.
Okay.
So that's an important thing to find out, because you know, it doesn't necessarily mean the drops themselves are to blame.
Right.
But there are a number of confusing things. This is science, and so we don't know everything.
Right.
It could be that one particular strain of this bacterium, which is called Pseudomonas aeruginosa, and we should talk about that, is growing in, is particularly amenable to the growth in this particular teardrop, especially when there are no preservatives.
Okay, well, yes, what you just said.
Yeah. Pseudomonas aeruginosa is the full name, but Pseudomonas is well known in healthcare because it is one of the more common serious bacterial infections that can occur. It happens a lot in hospitalized patients. It happens particularly to people who are either elderly or otherwise have a compromised immune system. And Pseudomonas infections are well known to us in ophthalmology because they're the leading cause of bacterial corneal infections among people who wear contact lenses.
Oh, no kidding.
When we see a corneal infection with a contact lens, where we assume it's Pseudomonas unless, until proven otherwise. And that's important for us to do because those are particularly aggressive organisms.
Wow.
And it's one that grows in certain environments, but it's particularly prevalent in hospitals and other places. So.
Right. Well, our eye seems quite susceptible to so many different things, and that's why it's so important to wash your hands and, of course, wash your contact lenses with the appropriate solution.
Yeah.
Don't put your finger in your eye. I mean, all those things that you've been told so many times.
That's right. Yeah, all of those, what we call aseptic techniques or antiseptic techniques are designed to reduce your exposure to bacteria, using artificial tears carefully, not touching the tip of an eye drop bottle when you put in eye drops. You don't want to touch your eye or your eyelashes with it. You want it to fall free, and keep that bottle tip after you take the cap off sterile. Keep the inside of the cap sterile.
Yeah.
And then when you put them back together, be careful not to contaminate on, on surfaces that are not sterile.
Does it help to put it in the refrigerator at all?
Great question. Yes.
Okay.
In general, and I'm not aware of any eye drop that is, where it's bad to put it in the fridge.
Okay.
In fact, there's other benefits of putting drops in the fridge. They sting less if you put drops in the fridge. And it does not impair generally the function of any eye drops. Now, some of the thicker formulations of drops become even thicker still when you put them in the fridge, and a little bit hard to drop off the end of the dropper. But for most drops, it's totally fine to do that. And of course, what cold does is reduce the growth of bacteria. That's why we can keep food longer. It's because it just doesn't, it slows down those chemical processes that cause bacteria to grow and decline of the freshness of food.
Okay.
So, what we certainly advise is if you have any of the Ezra Care products on hand, don't use them. If you have other artificial tears that have been opened for a while, certainly if they're beyond expirations, don't use them. If they're preservative-free drops that are designed to be opened, used once, and thrown away, then in general, do that.
Right.
Now, one exception to that is, with care, and this is sort of breaking the rules, but if you're careful, you dispense a single dose and you put it in a refrigerator and you put it upright. We advise patients you can take a shot glass and put your little dispenser inside there with the tip up. Don't let anything touch it. Put it in the fridge. Probably that's okay for a day or two instead of just using it and throwing it away.
Right.
But in general, preservative-free are meant to be used according to the instructions that you're given.
Well, exactly. Well, thank you very much for the information and for the warning today.
Yeah, important information, and I hope it's helpful to our listeners.
Thank you. And if you want more information about the Ezra Care line, you can always go to the cdc.gov. They have all the latest information on the preservative-free artificial tears, or you can contact Harvard Eye at 949-951-2020. We'll be right back.